All right, guess we on. What's going on, tribe members? Come on, man. It's definitely. I got another one here for you guys tonight, and just keep in mind, I'm gonna keep uploading those videos here. Now, those are exclusively for the Patreon. You know what I'm saying? I may have to, have a sneak peek of that. Either on IG or on YouTube, but this is exclusively for you. That's how special you are. So let's get right into it, guys. When I'm on that side of the shit, we were diving in. We're diving in. So tonight, my focus is for you to understand the false self. The Tibetan monks, they have this beautiful saying, and I'm in love with it, right? They say, for you to understand how a knot was tied. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's start over. They're saying, how do you untie a knot? Well, the best way to actually do it, you got to know how how the knot was tied in the first place. Oh, this is speaking a whole lot of volume here. What does that mean? Another way of saying that, for you to unfuck yourself, you got to know how you got fucked in the first place. And that goes for everything else in life. Everything in life. In the medical field, let's just say some illness, you're trying to discover, if you're looking for a remedy for the illness, you got to know how it affects you, how you catch it, and all that shit. In fact, that was one of the issues, that something that happened, they couldn't tell you how you catch it. None of that shit, 1 minute is over here, it's over there. You know what I'm saying? You get the point. But the bottom line is, where I'm going with this is very important for you. In order for you to align yourself with your true self, it's important for you to understand your false self. Meaning your true self is how you become whole, how you become perfect, how you become healed, how you become born again. But now you have to understand the false self. It's critical. There's no way around that. So now keep in mind, when, a lot of spiritualists or spiritual masters, I shouldn't say it's a spiritual master, but a lot of spiritualists, when it comes to, talking about the false self, they call it ego. And when they talk about the ego, they tell you that the ego is your false self, the part that's not truly you. So they're all right, but they're not talking about the ego, though. They're only talking about the false self. And that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight, so that you understand it. Oh, we're going to dive. Oof. Listen, you guys are in for a treat. So let's get right into it, right? So now that you understand the reason why you have to understand, the false self, because it's very critical, but most importantly, we all had to go through it. And a lot of us are still going through it. But you got to understand what it is. By you understanding what it is, you'll be raising your frequency, your vibration, and that's how you can only conquer what you understand. Because when people are under mind control, they're not aware of it. Do you see what I'm saying? So for you to overcome that, you have to understand, the false self. So what is the false self? Let's start from the very beginning, right? As a young kid, we all were taught how we got to behave, and we are also being rewarded for it. So at a very young age, even though we're not conscious of it, but we already know, for mommy and daddy to be approved or to approve of certain things, you already know there's a certain persona that you got to present. You already know there's a certain way you got to act. That's why our life, a lot of people are not living their life based on who they are, but they're living their life based on who they should be. So you have that image in your mind of who you should be, and that's how you're acting. So now that you have that image in your mind, you got to understand how it affects you. It affects you on all fucking different levels in your life. It affects you intellectually. It affects you emotionally, but most importantly, when it comes to you to identify yourself, it's also fucking you up as well. And we're going to be touching on all of those three different things so you understand and have a bigger picture of what I'm talking about here. So, when you have an image on how you got to act, first of all, by you just acting out that way and everybody else is acting out that way, you automatically become average. Automatically. And by you having this image of who you got to be, you are suppressing yourself. So that's the emotional side of it. That's why, you know what I'm saying, like a lot of people, you know, you are, you know, going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, you know what I'm saying, because you're having a hard time being who you are. So it's kind of like you pretty much in so many ways battling yourself. And a lot of us got really comfortable with it, you know, to a point where, you know, if you were to ask somebody, you know, what's your purpose, man? What do you like to do? When they tell you, you know what, I can't tell you, that's because they've been acting so much based on that image, and they have suppressed who they are, you know, their values, their gifts, and their self-esteem. So here's something else too. So technically, when you pretty much, you know, have this image of yourself and not yourself, because the word self-esteem derived from self. So if you're not valuing what you have, your gifts, your talent, the person that you are, I mean, you have no self-esteem. So you're pretty much turning into what is called a fucking robot, technically. So that's what Morpheus was trying to say, you know, to Neo, you know, that they turn you into a battery, like a dead battery. So you know, they rocking you to sleep. Literally. And I'm going to get into that too. But by me saying they, I'm not saying that there's some sort of, you know, intention to fucking hold you down. Personally, I don't think so. I think it's a lack of understanding. It's ignorance. And I'm going to talk about how we fuel the system. The system was created, technically we created it, right? Because fear, oh man, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Because, oh my God, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Because the thing you got to understand, once you have that image of who you have to be, so therefore, you know, a lot of people look at themselves, you know, like that image is like you got to be perfect. That image that you have of who you should be, it is a perfect image. So therefore, intellectually, it's affecting you because now you become narrow-minded. You can't even see what the fuck is in front of you. So think about it. If everything you do, you got to be perfect, how would you make mistakes? And we learn from our fucking mistakes. Now, I'm just giving you the nitty-gritty here. We're getting down to the lamest terms. Because all of that is spiritual. Don't let anybody, you know, fuck you up here. Everything is spiritual. And then when I get to the part of you aligning yourself with your true self, then that's going to be a whole different... But that's not what we're talking about here. But most importantly, everything is spiritual. The way you walk, the way you talk. Because when we talk about spirituality, we're talking about a higher state of consciousness. Meaning a higher way of seeing things. That's like you taking a trip, you know what I'm saying, really getting to know yourself and realize that you are spirit. Because just like I you know, well, maybe not in here, but I've made other videos where I talked about, you know, like your speech, it's a mental representation of you. Now, when you understand that, you know, that, okay, so now when you're saying, okay, so if my speech, it's a it's a representation of my mentality, so then what is my mentality then? So the mystery of that would be, oh shit, you are spirit. Because the true thing that makes us is the thing that you don't see. And your life is based on what you know, your thoughts. That's why changing your thoughts is changing your life. Now let's get back, because I just wanted to make sure you understand, because even though what I'm saying here, I'm using layman's terms and example, but it's all spiritual. Spirituality is not, far out, it has nothing to do with your life. That's duality. And I also will talk about that too. That's the whole European perspective. Whereas it's based on duality, you got a positive and a negative. You got heaven, you got hell. In other words, that's what it's called, eating from the tree of good and evil. And you'll never see the kingdom of God. And in so many words, that is the false self, and that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about. And that's what we're talking about right now. So by you having that image, it makes you narrow-minded, because now you don't want to make mistakes. And by you not willing to make mistakes, you are cultivating fear. So it's fear-based. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? And you not willing to make mistakes, guess what? It affects you in other areas in your life too. Because now you wouldn't start, that's why a lot of people, having issues starting a new business or starting a business, period. Because it's like shit gotta be perfect. I've worked, like my day job, I do accounting work. And here's something else too, because I'm going to be talking about, the false self, the way you identify yourself. A lot of people identify themselves based on their fucking accomplishment. Did you see how I finesse that? I do accounting work instead of saying I'm a fucking accountant, because I don't identify with that. And that makes a world of difference, because now I understand this is just an aspect of myself, but I know I'm way bigger than the fucking being a fucking accountant. The fuck? My accolades does not define the person that I am. So when you living your life based on the false self, your accolades become who you are. That's how you identify yourself, through your accomplishments. So that's why the false self is basically, it's essentially based on pleasing other people. Or seeking other people's validation. Do you see what I'm saying? And by you doing that, this shit is fucking you up emotionally, intellectually, and I just told you about how it's already affecting you as far as your identity. You see what I'm trying to say to you here? So let's get back to, now intellectually you become very narrow-minded. Guess what? Your mentality now is a black and white mentality. Hold up, I just got a text here. Hold up. Okay, let me put that away. So now you technically have a black and white or white mentality. Wait a minute, isn't that what duality is about? Do you see what I'm saying? Now you look at things in pieces and never the big picture. That's why you don't appreciate people. That's why you're judging people. Now you become very judgmental only because you're looking at things in parts. Because you're not looking at the bigger picture. How can you when you're fucking being narrow-minded? If it's black or white, you have no gray fucking areas. And that's what technically your human life is. And that's what you turn into. So that's why I'm jumping ahead of myself, but this is important for me to say. When you become born again, meaning you now you're changing your whole perspective on life. Now you have values, but anyway, let me just chill on that. But it's you know it's it and I think in so many ways it's a little bit hard to just talk about the false self without touching a little bit on the true self, because I want to have a whole different video on that, because that's fucking freedom, that's liberty, that's love, that's appreciating who you are, that's being open-minded, that's looking at the bigger picture, that's being cosmic. But that's a whole different story, though. I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, that's the shit that I really love, and that's the shit I really want to talk about, to be honest. But again, for you to unfuck yourself, let's talk about, I mean, you gotta know how you got fucked. Again, we gotta embrace that too. So, but for me, like the part that that does that thing for me, it's being in alignment with yourself. Of course, come on now, stop playing. Stop playing. So now I'm showing you how, living, and here's something else too, because they both do the same thing. They affect you. That's why knowledge, it's represented by a tree. Because you got to understand what makes the tree the tree. You're talking about the roots, you're talking about the branches, you're talking about the leaves, you're talking about there's so many different components to it. And knowledge is always represented by a tree because it affects you in different avenues in your life. So by me telling you about eating from the tree of good and evil, meaning you having this binary thinking, the false self, it's all or nothing. So now it's affecting you in a lot of fucking areas in your life. Emotionally, now even in love, you can't really love. How the fuck are you going to love somebody? So first of all, you identify with your fucking accomplishment. So whoever you're going to be with, is going to be based on their accomplishment. So you're not loving that person for who the fuck they are. You're loving them for their fucking accomplishment. And guess what too? Now, because you got to love yourself to love somebody else, when it comes to intimacy, you can't genuinely do it. Because you always got to hide that part of you. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? So that shit is a total shit show, man. It's a shit show. That's where motherfuckers are playing all of these games, all this bullshit. They don't know how to be who they are. So that's why you have, in this country, you have the battle between the sexes. To speak of love, it's like, it's like cursing somebody out, man. If you follow the fucking, all of the fucking shows, like, the dating shows and all that shit, it's all fucking games. But the games that